How do we determine the accuracy of China's statistics, and can we rely on them? China is the second largest economy in the world, and almost every country depends on it for several reasons. Many goods produced in the country are vital to the survival of other nations. People tend to watch the Chinese economy because it's connected to theirs, but there is a problem. The country hardly ever releases accurate information about its growth because they need to put up a positive front. So how do we determine the accuracy of China's statistics? And if they keep messing with their statistics, what impact will it have on other countries? Is China really misrepresenting its figures? China releases its gross domestic product, GDP, every 3 months, and the stats released by the country have kept economists up for years. When the figure stated by the country is compared to that of that same period in the previous year, the percentage growth is always too good to be true. It always seems inflated and therefore not to be trusted. For China, economic growth is not merely a measure of the total goods and services produced, but a matter of pride, ego, and prestige. They need always to seem strong, and the economy needs to seem like it's thriving. One of the reasons behind that is that the Chinese people tend to panic when the numbers are low, which might even worsen the situation as they would begin to panic sell or do other things that will cause the stock market to tumble. This sounds like a solid reason, but it does not justify it. The alteration of data also harms the country's economy. Let's use the population statistics for 2020 as a case study. In May 2021, China's National Bureau of Statistics revealed that China's overall population rose to 1.412 billion in 2020 from 1.4 billion the year before. The curious part was when it also stated that Chinese mothers gave birth to 12 million babies that same year. It certainly looks like everything is in order. If 12 million babies are added to the 2019 population of 1.4 billion, it will give the 1.412 billion that was said to be the 2020 population. But this leaves us with the question, no deaths were accounted for in 2020? Let's all remember that 2020 was the year of COVID-19 and China was the country it originated from. So how in the world did they not account for any deaths? This shows that there is a much bigger thing at play. Measurement problem. And the excuse that might be given is that it takes a lot of work to get an accurate result. That is true because despite the simple calculation, a country's GDP is consumption plus investment plus government spending plus exports. It's almost impossible to get an accurate result. Even if they place an economist at every point required, there will be so much data to collate and there will be a mistake in the process. The Bureau of Statistics might later have to watch the trend of the country's economy to give a particular result. But that's different from what's happening in China. Indeed, China is a large country with quite an advanced economy, and data collection would be a major headache. But the country does its best in collating its data due to different advanced methods put in place, but in the end, the data gets altered by the people at the top. The Chinese government decides what to reveal and what not to reveal. They sit and evaluate whatever is going on in the country. It'll be altered if it doesn't suit the image they want for the country. The world would perceive China as perfect, and its citizens wouldn't know if the country is on the verge of collapsing, and they would keep doing as they please. How does it affect people in other countries? This question would be on many people's minds because they believe that since they don't reside in China, nor are they Chinese, they can do as they please with their economy. Well, if you're one of them, you're wrong. The world is already globalized, and one country's economy might affect that of many others. China, the second largest economy in the world, is interconnected to several other economies across the globe. It's sometimes called the engine of the global economy. In a case where you're working for a car company, let's say in Europe or Japan, and China is a major market for it, the ability of the Chinese to afford the car would matter a lot. Another scenario is if you're in Australia or Indonesia and the coal or iron ore extracted is mainly to be sold to the Chinese market, it really matters if there is an increase or a decrease in demand. Now you know how important China's economy is. Mind games. Knowing that the truth about them falsifying their economic data is coming to light and seeing that the lies are already hurting the economy, they decided to do something different in 2022. On May 27, 2022, China punished several local officials by demoting them or complete dismissal for falsifying economic data. The country's Statistics Bureau had said it was a step taken to prevent data fraud. The Bureau was said to have found data violations in 2020 and 2021 after carrying out several investigations. In a city called Jingtai, 45 officials were punished after they found that some of its data on fixed asset investment, industrial output, wholesales, and retail sales needed to be more accurate. The other cities involved also had something similar going on. And this shows that the cooking of books starts from the low levels before it's further altered at the higher level. The Bureau also promised that the data released onwards would not be falsified and would be accurate, precise, and reliable as it should be. Whether or not they keep to their promise, there are always ways to determine China's economy, and these ways can hardly be altered. Ways to determine China's economic growth. There are several ways to determine China's output, as it's correlated with many other data that the government can hardly alter. Li Keqiang, the former head of the Chinese Communist Party and a notable former member of the Chinese government, who once revealed that China's GDP is unreliable, also mentioned ways of determining economic growth without the GDP. He said one could use the electricity consumption of the country, the rail cargo volume of the country, and bank lending. Suppose an economy is using more electricity, moving more cargo over rail, and lending more money to those who require it. In that case, the country's economy is booming and creating more output. But if the reverse is the case, the result indicates that the country's economy is ailing. The good thing about Li's methods is that they're centralized, quite easy to collate, and very hard to manipulate. The amount of electricity used is measured directly from the grid. The rail yard records the number of cargoes leaving and coming in, and banks keep records of who they lent money to. But these methods come with a little issue, as foreigners cannot easily access the information needed to compare the data, and there's a high probability that it can be manipulated if the foreigners request the data. Another method that can be used but is not very feasible is to measure the amount of light emitted by a country at night using satellite images. The idea is that a country will emit more light if economic activity occurs. This also proves difficult to be used, as different factors can affect the amount of light emitted by a country, and it might not necessarily be because of more economic activities going on in a country. For instance, a country with a larger population tends to be more lit up than a country with a smaller population, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the former has a better economic output than the latter. So it takes a lot of work to deduce accurate results. In light of it all, one can only hope that countries release the actual data they collate, and even if they fudge it up a bit, it doesn't have an adverse effect on both their economy and the economies of the countries that are connected to it. Well, thanks again for watching. Kindly like this video and subscribe to the channel. Please remember to leave comments in the comments section below, as we'd like your thoughts on what's been discussed here. Until next time.